So I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm trying to critique about some psychological experience that I'm encountering right now. So I don't know if you guys know about this, or maybe you've experienced this. There's this thing, whenever you start doing something, you become so consciously aware of what you're doing, in the sense that it feels like there is a split that has happened in your consciousness, right? So the split is splits into these dual opposites. So something like the speaker and the thinker versus the observer. And so the observer is actually watching the thinker and the speaker engage. And so immediately that starts happening, you become so consciously aware, and then boom, you just zone out. You don't know what happened. So I've been experiencing this in my life. And the observer, in some way, critiques your posture, your attitude. The observer critiques your poses and all that. And all of a sudden, all your expression just turn into some sort of inspection. And you just don't know what happened. And so that's why, in most cases, I've always wished to have a second party to anchor, to anchor onto, because whenever I'm having a discussion with someone, that is a one-on-one discussion, that is a dialogue. So we're exchanging, right? So I pose a question, we discuss, you pose a question, we discuss. So it's a hit, you hit back. So when you hit back, I think, and that becomes so simple, so way too simple. And like, whenever I'm having such kind of talks, it's me and the camera, in the audience is in absentia. It actually undermines one of the key specific things of, thinking, which is so vital and essential, which is the spontaneity of thought, the ability for you to generate thought without conscious awareness. So that's when you reach at this state when where thoughts just come out of, then unconsciously you're just thinking without managing yourself, without having this some sort of surveillance. You're surveilling yourself what you're doing, which is absolutely wrong. Which is absolutely wrong. I've experienced this in my life so often that I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, this thing is so malignant in some way. Which sometimes I wonder: is this the observer's effect, where the observer changes the thing being observed? Because at some point you feel like it's hyper consciousness to an extent where you feel like the mind is reflecting on the mind is reflecting on its own self in some way. So you try so hard to think more, you reflect on yourself, you turn your attention onto yourself, and you just can't comprehend what you're doing. I think there's a Hungarian American psychologist by the name uh, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote extensively on flow state. He's actually the pioneer of the theory of flow state, which is a high, a highly focused mental state, which is conducive for, productivity. That's why anyone who was a split in consciousness cannot attain productivity whatsoever. It becomes so hard. I've experienced this in my own life, man, because whenever you start thinking about yourself, it retards you. It retards your thought. I mean, if you look at Dostoevsky's work, it's majorly centered on consciousness, although on Dostoevsky's part, I would say consciousness in terms of feeling, but all his literature is centered in consciousness. And there's somewhere, I think somewhere along the way, Dostoevsky writes that consciousness is a disease. Yeah, it's just a curse in some way. And you can read Raskolnikov's Crime and Punishment, you can read Notes from Underground, The Underground Man, who retreats into his own chambers and wants to do nothing with his own life. So I don't know what this is. I don't know if you guys experience such things, because I'm currently experiencing this thing, and this thing is pretty dismal, man. I just can't. It's so crazy. I just can't tie my head around it.